Excellent. Hello, everyone out there in Zoom world. Good morning here in the U.S. and good afternoon. And I think we've got some folks from UK and Europe and maybe from around the world. So whatever time it is, thank you for joining. I am Dave Whelan. One of the hats I wear is Chief Business Officer for Big Four Bio, and we've been collaborating this week with Biotech Gate and some other partners on our second annual now big pre-JPM partnering week. And the goal all week has been to provide guidance, insights about what's going on in the industry, how to prepare for JP Morgan, helping make some partnering connections along the way. And we're in the home stretch. There's one more panel in a couple of hours, but really excited for this one now. One, because I'm moderating it, but two, it's one of my favorite topics, which is just JP Morgan week can be very bewildering for first timers, bewildering even for people who've been many times. Either bewildering or tiring or frustrating or wet or all of those things put together. And so this is a fun opportunity to bring together some leaders from all sorts of different backgrounds, some who are veterans at BioWeek, some who are relatively new, some who will be there, some who won't be there, and really tell a bit of a story about what we're working on and how that fits into the bigger market side of things. Just another minute on myself again. Part of the Big Four Bio team, but also doing some work in the venture capital world and uh, helping to build businesses, helping to bring businesses from the outside the U.S. into the U.S. in the healthcare world. And I've been doing that for many years, wearing multiple hats, and really excited to have a group here that I've worked with in different ways over the years. And so gonna have each of them introduce themselves really briefly. Just tell us who you are, what you're doing in your current role, and then would love just to have a minute or so on what's your experience, first time, long timer with JP Morgan Week. Don't spend too much time. We'll come back to that, and we will kick off with Sofia.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me, Dave. I'm by no means an expert at JP Morgan because I've only been once. But I'm the co-founder and CEO of Circadian OS, a spin out from Rockefeller University in New York, and inspired by my mentor's Nobel Prize winning research on clock genes, which I'm trying to leverage to make cancer drugs and immunotherapies work better, actually using light therapy. Yeah.
Awesome. And you will be there next month.
I'm gonna go, and we're raising money. So our main goal is to get meetings to kind of, get feedback on our technology, but also, form connections with investors.
Awesome. Excellent. Tomas.
Let me get off mute there. Yeah, my name is Thomas Philipson. I used to be an economics professor at University of Chicago. I was a chief economist at FDA and CMS, and then chief economist at the White House for 3 years. I have co-founded a company that was sold to Blackstone in 2015 in healthcare analytics, and I'm currently launching a new insurance product with Lloyd's of London that will insure clinical trial investors against their investment into trials. So if your endpoint does not hit, you get your total trial expense back from Lloyd's, essentially. And I'm happy to talk about that and how that is generating secure debt financing, essentially, of biotechs currently.
Awesome. Yeah, no, really excited about what you're doing with that and how it fits into the venture world, and would love to bring some of that into this conversation. Tari, please say hello.
Hi, everybody. Sofia, small world. I did my PhD at the Rockefeller University and then worked for the tech transfer office under Kathleen Dennis for 11 years. Actually, was it 11? Yeah, something like that. And then actually, so my current role is that I'm the director for search and evaluation for Novo Nordisk, the pharmaceutical company. We're headquartered in Denmark, but we are constantly seeking business opportunities across the world. And so I have a regional focus on the Western US and Canada. And it can be from assets of collaborators, as well as potential acquisitions. But it's really about feeding our pipeline so that we can, continue to grow sustainably for the next 100 years. We've been around for a little while. This will be my third JPM as a member of Novo Nordisk and as the quote unquote buy side role. But I did spend a couple of years when I was at the Salk Institute, when I was involved in some startup formation efforts. So like what you're trying to do, Sofia, right? Trying to get people interested in the technology, right? Getting them interested in potentially investing. So probably corporate venture, traditional VC, seed funds, etc. So I have experienced both sides. And we can talk a little bit later which one I like better.
all different. It's all good, Tari, right? Finally, Dhruv Vig, say hello, please.
Thanks, Dave. So as Dave mentioned, so I'm Dhruv Vig. Nice to meet everyone. Based in San Diego. So have a colorful background ranging from originally being an academic scientist, then a VC in the health tech world, co-founder of a health tech company, worked in finance. Currently, my position is CEO of a fintech startup that is my own. We are creating a platform to launch publicly traded ETFs, exchange traded funds. We've already created and launched the first ever health tech ETF that's currently listed on the New York Stock Exchange, which went live in January of this year.
Awesome. And you are right as of right now, you're not going to be there next month, right? Unless I invite you to some
Tentatively,
awesome
I'm not planning on being there. Who knows what's going to happen in the next month?
Exactly. Perfect. Well, the goal is to like get everyone excited. But and by the way, for those of you out there on Zoom, we do have a Q&A function, and I've got a bunch of questions for the panelists. But if I would really love to get some questions from the audience, so feel free to put those into the Q&A box, and I'll try to weave those in as we go. But want to dive in because we've got a lot to talk about, and I'm going to start this off with. I'm here at my home office, and my wife just took the kids to school, so I can't shout out to her. But literally, my wife's favorite, question confusion every year is, I tell her I'm going to, I'm going up to San Francisco for JP Morgan, and then she says, "Oh, tell me about this JP Morgan conference," and I'm like, "Well, I'm not actually going to the JP Morgan conference. I'm going to a bunch of other stuff around this," and and I've been doing this now for, I don't know, 10 years or something. And she's still trying to figure out, what exactly I'm doing going to San Francisco for a bunch of meetings, and, kind of hanging out with thousands of people that I sometimes see only once a year. And so, want to hear from everyone kind of, what exactly is this week, kind of what's been your perspective. Tari, Tomas, you might have actually spent some time at the big JP Morgan event. Would love to hear a little bit about that. And then I spend time at some other partnering events, and so want to go around the room. Maybe just I'll start, Sofia, since you're early in this. Would love to hear what your experience was last year, as a first timer. And then we can kind of go around the room and get a sense of what this looks like to each of you.
Yeah. So we went last year, and I have a team of 3, so it's me and 2 other co-founders. And one of the co-founders, who's the one who actually introduced us, Tom Brennan, he knows a lot of people, and it was absolutely crucial that we went with him. Without him, this would have made no sense. Now I also kind of built my network in the last year, so it would make more sense. But still, with him, we just stood in the lobby of a hotel, and people would like walk past, and it would be like, "Hey, how are you?" And the meetings would coalesce, and he was like a nucleator for his connections, who of course are his connections because there's already a common history and a common interest in certain types of startups. And so we got a lot of good conversations and good introductions by being there with him. Apart from that, we had a couple of invites to a couple of receptions from pharma companies, from our law firm. And those were, of course, great ways to, to meet people. And apart from that, we just spent a lot of time sitting in the beautiful lobby of, I think, is it the Four Seasons? And just kind of holding court and having meetings there and showing your face. And yeah, that was a big part of it. And this year, we're actually fundraising. Back then it was all very, shiny and new and just like circadian rhythms. And there wasn't a lot of kind of specificity to our goals while being there. And this year it's really about, okay, we think we have something fundable. This is what we want to achieve. And so we're specifically seeking out meetings to accomplish that.
Awesome. Yeah, and the law firm event, I think it's always good to, you certainly go to your law firm's event, and then make sure you're going to at least one other one, and make sure your law firm knows that you're going to at least another one. So they always know that you've got other options out there in the legal world. But Thomas, tell us what's been your experience during this week?
Well, I think in general, these meetings are going to be less and less productive relative to virtual meetings like this, essentially, right? Because the internet is made for matching taking place a lot more efficiently, whether it's Match.com or Indeed.com or what have you, where you're matching two sides of people who want to meet. And these conferences are kind of like that, where you run around in a hotel and stress around, etc., as opposed to sitting at home right now talking to you guys. It's a lot more efficient to just get your information across. Also, these matching platforms are getting more and more sophisticated and efficient. So you can just search exactly on the criteria. I'm an investor, so I can search on drug class, small molecule versus large molecule. I mean, I can just put in exactly what I want to invest in and get, spit out 20 or 30 companies that are in those categories, compared to talking to people inefficiently, hearsay or whatever, third person information. So I think, trade shows are valuable if you want to display some technology, such as electronic trade show in Vegas or something. But when it comes to just matching, I think it's going to become more and more outdated. It's very useful to have a single place you go, but it can easily go much more efficient, in my view, on the internet than in person and running around in hotel lobbies and booking rooms, etc. A lot cheaper too. So.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I'm going to go to Tari in a second, but actually, Tari and I met during pandemic. I think it was virtual partnering or something like that. And so we met virtually, and probably met virtually a few times after that, before pandemic wound down and we ever met in person. And so I do like this idea of bringing in some of that. Maybe the hybrid angle, and a couple of the bigger side events that happen next month. Resi Biotech Showcase. Both of those have really active virtual, digital partnering that leads into in-person events as well. And as opposed to what Sofia was saying of hanging out in the lobby and hoping people come by. Tari, from your perspective, especially being out there as a buyer trying to find specific technologies, how do you dive into that?
So I have the good fortune of also being able to divide my time between Novo Nordisk's private meeting suites, which are in one of the hotels off Union Square, and we use those to actually progress discussions with parties that we've already been talking to. It's either to drive something to conclusion or to work out some kinks. And Tomas, to your point, we are a global company. We have key stakeholders scattered between Europe and US and so forth. And so a lot of our discussions so far up to this point have all been done virtually, right? So people in pretty boxes. And so a chance to actually see each other face to face and connect in that way. We have found that to be meaningful, and this seems to be a reasonable touch point for that, i.e. JP Morgan Week that's what I like to call it, is considered to be sufficiently business critical for people at VP level and up to come in person. So we do try to take advantage of that. The other half of my time, I'll be at Biotech Showcase. Novo Nordisk is one of the sponsors, and that is where I consider this is where we find the new stuff. Right. But I'm very intentional. Biotech Showcase has a great search function. We are focused on cardiometabolic disease, so I can search by therapeutic area. We're modality agnostic, so that's okay. And we'll have a small group of us, actively taking part in meetings. So I'm going to try to spend my time in blocks so that I'm not just running back and forth between the two places, and just spend, a morning here and the afternoon the other place, and so forth. And hopefully it all works out. But yeah, I mean, I think I've just learned how to be just very systematic and very prioritized. And of course, right, all the random collisions that you will have at the receptions and on the street, those are fun. They can potentially be fruitful. I mean, Sofia, I was so glad to hear that you had Tom be your nucleator. That is how you do it. If you're going to, be in sort of in the flow, you need someone to be that boulder that everybody just kind of, hits for, even if it's just for 5 minutes, right? But it's consistent with the intention that you all had last year. Like, it's visibility, putting the word out, like there's this really cool new company coming out working in this. But this year, clearly your intention is a little bit different. So you're probably going to do it a wee bit differently. And I think that's really something for I think everyone who's in our audience to think about, is like, why are you going? And how, and then strategize how you get to that.
Yeah, and Tari, I think that's actually a really perfect point, because having done this week for many years, and I will be I can admit that the first few times I went to this week, it was really because other people I knew in the industry were going to be there, and it seemed like a fun way to spend a few days. And I was there to randomly network, but not there wasn't a strong why there. And the more of that strong why, what are your goals, what are your intentions, who are you trying to meet, and more importantly, like, what are you trying to come out of this with, to help set the stage for dividing your time between Biotech Showcase, Resi, the Bullpen, which is an organization that I've been involved with. Tari, you were part of a Bullpen event earlier this week. Dhruv has been to some Bullpen things during bio and other events. Some of these organizations that are really trying to bring together people in different ways, and also create opportunities for planned interactions, but also enough space for that serendipity. I think that's kind of the perfect balance. And Dhruv, I'm going to switch topics on you, because before we go into some of the practical things, I think it makes sense on a panel like this just to talk a little bit about what's going on in the marketplace. And we've already talked about pandemic, and so just looking back a few years as events have changed, we've had the ups and downs of the market, because of pandemic, in spite of pandemic, now coming out, growth crises, new year, new presidential administration. So Dhruv, as our official public investor on the panel, what's your feeling about 2025, and how does that change how people go into an event like this?
All right, so thanks for the easy question, Dave.
This is not registered financial advice.
Yeah. So I think there are a couple macro level themes that are going to be recurring for the next several years within healthcare. And so I'll talk about healthcare specific themes, non-healthcare specific themes, to touch on the election and going into 2025. And we'll try and tie that back into how you approach the conference. So I think two macro level themes in healthcare that we're going to hear constantly about, which we've already heard about in the last 18 months, is one is GLP-1s, weight loss drugs. I will not be the expert, since Novo Nordisk is on the phone, is on the panel. They can be the expert. The other one is AI, I'll claim some expertise there because that is how we look at the health tech universe and categorize those companies. So you're just going to see more of that. So if you tie that back into how you're going to approach this conference, I think when you look at JP Morgan and how I've done it in the past, I kind of agree with everyone else here on the panel of have a centralized location where instead of you running around, you can sort of set meetings. And when I used to live in the Bay Area, I did not have any meetings that were people who were local. So I'd always meet them outside the conference. It was people who were actually living in New York or international. Like we had a spot, centralized location, let's go meet there. If you're not in meetings, you're in educational content, right? So going back to then to sort of macro level themes, if this is sort of something you want to get more educated on, if you're looking for like keywords and how do you select for panels to attend, weight loss drugs, right? What are the impacts on healthcare across all industries in terms of biopharma, medical device, diagnostics, and health tech, as well as then what are the impacts of AI, right? And who is actually already developing AI technologies? There are currently AI technologies in market by the sort of the healthcare incumbents. What are the impacts that they're having? That will sort of put you on sort of I would say the cutting edge or staying up to speed of what things are going, because even traditional companies that are not doing AI things like traditional medical device companies are now being pivoted into it and have those technologies. So that's sort of as a macro level where the markets are going, how you can sort of leverage JP Morgan content, that abundance and density of content is one. If you want non-healthcare content, the topics, look, I don't know what's going to happen because no one has a crystal ball. I think that most people believe that there's a recession coming sometime next year. What that means in terms of the market performance, we don't know outside of the big tech companies. So be cautious how things are going. If someone is being overly optimistic and what they're thinking about is going to happen the next 6 months, take that with a grain of salt, especially if you're going to the conference. But realize healthcare is countercyclical, right? It's a stable industry. Healthcare never grows out of business, unlike other types of companies or sectors. So there is that resilience there at a high level. How does that tie back into JP Morgan? I would say it won't be doom and gloom. Have fun because of it. I don't think you're going to see anything there in terms of, oh, the sky is falling because of X, Y, Z is now coming into the office. Change is coming. It'll last 4 years, and then someone new is going to come into office, right? So it'll be in the long run a short-term market perturbation in terms of how things are going. So yeah.
Yeah, no, well said. And by the way, I always, for as many people as are in San Francisco during this week in January, and we all think that everyone is there, when you really think about it, most of the industry is still back at home doing their regular thing. And so those of us on this on this panel listening in, we are the ones who are out there as the as that advanced party trying to figure out where things are going, trying to help make things happen. And so while there's a lot of us here, our goal is to go back to our day jobs and help move the needle in our organizations, in our industry. And so I think it's exciting from that standpoint. I'd love, anyone else who wants to, just talk a little bit about the market side, feel free to dive in. You guys don't want to, it's all right, but Tari, you shouldn't, but Thomas, actually, this is actually, maybe just, I'd love just your thoughts for a second, especially as it relates to this new funding mechanism you've built, because I think that's a really interesting way to get past some of the slowdowns we've seen over the past couple of years.
Yeah, so basically what this is a way to allow, think of it as secure debt. So Lloyd's will insure your trial expenses in case the trial fails. And then a lender will step in and lend you the money for the trial. And if the trial fails, Lloyd's will pay the lender the loan, essentially. So what that means, if you have a $10 million trial, let's say, you will basically write a premium on that trial or finance a premium, which will be much lower than 10 million, obviously. Once you finance the premium, you will get a loan for 10 million from the lender and execute the trial. If the trial fails, Lloyd's pays the lender, so you're not laying awake at night with a big loan and a failed trial. because you don't pay anything, interest and principal, in case the trial fails. If the trial succeeds, you obviously use non-dilutive funding. So you haven't given away the store and not giving away, let's say, 20 to 30% of the valuation gain that you would have when the trial succeeds. So the way I think about it is, it's better than equity when you succeed and better than debt when you fail. Because it's better than equity when you succeed because you basically own more of the valuation gain. It's better than debt when you fail because you don't own any money. You don't own any money to the lender when you fail, because that's secured. It's essentially the Lloyd's Insurance Act as a collateral on the loan, if you want to think of it that way. So I think we've talked to about 60 companies. 100% of them are now applying for this kind of financing. So I think it's something that if there's people online that are interested, feel free to contact me and we'll be happy to have a discussion.
Awesome. No, thanks. And I think there's it kind of shows the, we're seeing more, more opportunities for different kinds of funding, and I'm hopeful that there'll be more conversations about those going on, next month. This year there's been some great announcements coming out of ARPA-H and some other federal programs, hoping all those things continue to grow, but opportunities for non-dilutive funding, even Dhruv, the work that you're doing indirectly is about, creating more opportunity on, on the public side of things, and, and maybe even giving some paths to people to, to leverage their dollars. So let's be excited from that standpoint. We've been talking about sort of I think, lots of good ideas, but also how confusing things can be. Tari, you gave some good guidance about being intentional and planning, but with basically 1 month to go, how do you recommend that people start to both plan out their days and and figure out what who they should be talking to? What are the best resources? We talked about Biotech Showcase and Resi. I mentioned Bullpen. Are there other ways people should be talking? And Tari, I'll call as from the buyer standpoint, people are coming to you, but how do you want people to be reaching out to you ahead of time, and how do you want them to be kind of connecting with you during that week?
That's a really good question, because the thing is, 1 month out, this is late in the game, right? I mean, most of the blue chip, the institutional, VCs, certainly in the life sciences space, like those that end in rock and so forth, they're probably getting, pretty full for those of you so if you haven't already gotten your meeting, it might be a little challenging to get them at this juncture. But I mean, obviously never say never. With regards to me personally, I already know that my time slots are tight. I have to reserve a certain number for Biotech Showcase. I have to reserve a certain number for in our suites. Like, I was actually just making my list of what are my my private meetings, right? These are the ongoing discussions. Remember, these are things to try to get things to getting done. That's my goal, right? So that's my priority. I have 10 already, right? And hopefully they're going to fall into these blocks, like I said, so I can be efficient. And then whatever's left is going to go into Biotech Showcase. So anything that's going to be outside of those, like for instance, like someone coming completely out of the cold, I will be completely honest, I am probably going to put you into the virtual section, or I've actually set aside Thursday. So I think, was it Dhruv who says, like, when if I'm going to meet people locally, I'll just meet them outside. So I do have a number of, people, if, that are either in the Bay Area or they're going to be staying a little longer. Thursday, everything calms down, right? I don't have to worry about stakeholder management. I don't have to worry about, what is my company doing and where do I have to be? I can actually, claim a meeting room probably for a good 3-4 hours. And that's kind of where I'm going to sort of be a little bit more open. For your initial outreach, please be intentional. Please look at Novo Nordisk and understand what our priorities are. If you come at me with oncology, I will just say it's certainly not in scope. We have zero activity in that space currently and no demand for it. Be informative without being enabling. right? Give me a nice non-con deck, 10 slides or less, so that I have a good idea of what it is that you're doing. And then it's kind of, we'll see, right? And if we don't get in those 4 days, if you're well within our wheelhouse, I'll meet with you virtually after. I live in San Diego too, Dhruv. So, and I do keep a meeting space in there where I can do that. But I love virtual. It's so efficient, right? I mean, you can get so much done in 30 minutes. I don't have to get into my car and get dressed. In nice clothes and whatnot. I can just I'll just go from Zoom to Teams, and whatnot. And it's really about being efficient, because I fully intend on getting a full night's sleep every night. No offense, guys.
Good. That's good guidance, I think, on that one. And by the way, as we're talking about virtual, one of the things I'm reminded of, which I do for things like this, I did a lot during pandemic, is look at these partnering events, activities, whether it's Resi or Biotech Showcase or some of the other ones. Like, those are great opportunities to have meetings immediately, but I almost always, in my outreach to someone, I say, look, if we can find time to get together during this thing, great. If not, here's my email, address, outside of the system. Here's my Calendly. Let's find some time to connect virtually after this whole week is done, because to your point, Tari, there's only so many hours in the day, only so many hours in the week, and you're not necessarily going to be able to meet with everyone. And so entrepreneurs in particular, like, don't make this all about how do you see someone that week. Use this as an opportunity to, it's just creating a new introduction, right? If you're signed on to a biotech showcase or a Resi or something like that, I would love to hear from someone and have them say, can we plan to get together virtually in 2 weeks once all the chaos is done? Because this is the start of the year and there's a lot to come. And so Sofia, hopefully you're already doing some things like that as you're doing some outreach. What are you seeing in terms of some initial conversations you're having, or kind of trying to schedule things?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tricky, and I think like Tari was explaining, a lot of people who are in later stages of the whole drug making life cycle, they go there for very specific targeted meetings. And to some extent, that's kind of the opposite of what a startup is doing. And that also feeds into the whole live versus virtual thing. All this matchmaking stuff is fantastic when you know what you're selling and what you're buying. But as an early stage, high science startup straight out of academia, you actually are in the process of trying to understand what that is. And in my experience, these these random, not so random interactions with highly sophisticated, informed participants of the ecosystem have been absolutely invaluable. And I do some of that in New York City, and JPM is obviously the melting pot of that. And so it's difficult because, again, now we have a business model, everything is much more clear than a year ago, but still it's of course nowhere near where a Novo Nordisk would be like very specifically looking for some asset to buy. We're a startup. So it's kind of like getting high quality meetings without actually having a specific thing to offer, but getting as specific as you can about that. That's, I think, the whole art here. And yeah, so that's what we're trying to achieve. And in terms of getting the meetings, we actually were in San Francisco just a few weeks ago. And so I tried to use that to line up meetings that I'm going to have now. And I've spent the last month or so reaching out to people and kind of, socializing the idea. We'll be in town. I know this might not be your priority, but maybe you have 5 minutes to talk to us about what we think we can do and what you think we could do, and whether there's something we could do together.
Great. Yeah, and I think that's the time is tight, as Tari said, and Sofia, as you're saying, that kind of pre work you're doing is great. There's been a couple interrelated questions coming through around sort of what are the events? And I think we've mentioned a few of them, outside of the main JP Morgan event. Of course, there's these bigger partnering events like a biotech showcase, which this year, it's biotech showcase, digital health showcase, tech bio showcase, all, they're really touching the entirety of the industry. Resi, from Life Science Nation, similar kind of event. Both of them are happening in parallel. They're both incredible events. You don't necessarily need to try to go to both of those, but going to one of those are there's opportunities for startups to get in at a relatively low cost. There's ways to sometimes, as an entrepreneur, to volunteer a little bit of time at one of these events and get access to the event. And so if you're out there and you haven't signed up for something, there still might be some ways to get plugged into those. There's a Free Mind does a major seminar 1 or 2 days on non-dilutive funding that I think is completely free. And by the way, just one thing, if you've not already done it, once upon a time, Big Four Bio used to publish a PDF guide on things going on during JP Morgan week. There were a couple of other organizations that were doing PDF guides. I think the PDF guides are all in the past, but Bio, the trade organization, in collaboration with Novature and a couple other partners, have now created a smartphone app. And so if you go onto App Store or Google Play Store and look up JPM 2025 Bio JPM, you'll be able to pull up this app that will list a lot of the events that are going on, and they're continually updating this. But this is a way to both see some of the bigger formal events, but also see some of these other kind of evening receptions and side things that are going on. And so definitely download that. Definitely look at some of those, and definitely sign up for some of those things. There's a lot of receptions and networking events that are completely free, but they're also they're all capped out. And I think especially in the maybe even more so now in this post-pandemic world, we're not trying to fit 1,000 people into a small little cocktail bar in San Francisco anymore. So it's only 800 people in that small little cocktail bar. So sign up while you still have the chance for those things.
So Dave, one thing I'll mention is another way to think about this, if it's your first time, is 80. Look, as basic as it sounds, 80-20 rule. Spend 80% of your time in like the meetings, educational content, learning. Spend 20% of your time actually having fun. Where I would say fun is those nighttime receptions. Yes, even if they are sold out, people don't always show up for these things because they get triple booked. So you can crash it, is the truth. And if you want to know who's making those events, I think you mentioned earlier law firms, banks, anyone in the service industry, right? Insurance companies, they're all going to be co-sponsoring different events and different restaurants. And that's, I would say, don't write those off completely. Even if they are slightly exhausting, because you don't know where years later things might come back and pay back. As silly as this sounds, someone I met during JP Morgan at one of those late night reception events that we got talking, we did a sake bomb together. Years later is now an angel investor in us. It was just a connection, right? That started a relationship, us being at JP Morgan, having a good time. And then, years later, ended up becoming now a very strong relationship. But that came from a fun event, right? That was a random interaction.
But let's talk a little bit about this, because I will tell you right now that after hours and I'm in a reception, that is not the place to pitch or sell anything to me. I'm there to relax. I'm there to converse. I'm happy to meet new people, but I want to meet people as people.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. I mean, I've literally, remember, in a lot of these places, the lighting will not be good. It'll be loud, right? Because there'll be a lot of people talking at the same time. This is not an ideal time for like someone like Sofia to pitch their science to me. But if Sofia came up to me and let's just say we did not have this and said, you know, oh, someone said I should say hi to you. You're apparently from Rockefeller as well. Establish the personal connection, right? Like if you go to the same school together, if you happen to know the same people, even better, have someone walk you over and be like, hey, you guys should really, you know, talk at some point. I just want to make sure that you guys see each other, you know, in person. And so to your point, right? Be it the sake bomb or even just chatting lightly about, you know, anything from like, my God, that weather was crazy. Remember, like we had that one year where trees were falling over, right? People just want to literally just relax. So what you then say is like, hey, I would love to talk more to you on a more professional level, but after this, right? To your point, Dave. So read the room, right? When you go in, just going in guns blazing without any context and without any recognition of like, what is this situation? It's not a good look, you guys. I will run away.
I agree with that. So I'll double down on that. Well said, Tari, because so like I'm in SoCal, so I do LA Tech Week. If you want to talk about like other sort of industry events, I've never been to SF Tech Week. I've heard SF Tech Week is nothing like LA Tech Week, where a line ends up forming of just people trying to pitch investors nonstop. So people actually prefer LA Tech Week because it's more casual. It's more like get to know you a little bit more. I don't know if that's LA versus SF or something there, but I think that's something that you have to be cognizant of, that when the sun goes down, it's okay to turn it off. You'll meet people and other things. And to be clear, everyone's in the same boat during JP Morgan, which is it's typically freezing cold, it's pouring rain, and your feet are killing you. So like you'll find something to talk about, right? And everyone's gonna want to have a drink and like sit and relax after a long day, because you have 4 more days of this, at least, unless you're staying longer.
Yeah, and by the way, that's I think, you know, a couple levels of what you're both saying there. You know, one doesn't help Sofia, you know, trying to raise capital right now, but you know, there is you know, there's a long game in all of this, and this is about building relationships, and you don't know, as Drew said, you know, who's going to end up coming back and what they're going to end up doing. And so, you know, I look at these, and I was telling Tari before, you know, before we came online here, that when I first started to go to this week, I was, you know, first of all, I was a, you know, independent consultant. I was, you know, I did look at this. I did look at all of the law firm and investment bank events as a chance to, you know, score, you know, free drinks and free food, which they still are. Although I will say, somebody asked a question about, are things still as crazy, you know, post pandemic? Not quite. And I do feel like a lot of the events, the bigger kind of splashier events have toned down, but you still you should not be buying your own dinner during JP Morgan week, because if you're strategic, you will get plenty of you know, plenty of food at these evening receptions. But you know, I used to think about, well, how many people am I going to meet? And I would come back with this massive stack of business cards. And, you know, then, you know, a week later, 2 weeks later, and suddenly I've got still this massive stack of business cards. And, you know, what do you do with it? And so that old metric of how many business cards did I get is thankfully long replaced by, you know, I would rather get a really small stack of business cards, or to Tari's point, a really small stack of QR codes, or you know, electronic connections. But you know, who are the handful of people that I've met that I've got a great now connection with, that I really want to do a meaningful follow-up with? You can get a lot more out of that than a massive stack of business cards that you don't know what to do with. But also you know, the long game angle is, you know, you're going to be at this week multiple times over multiple years. And sometimes it's those people that you see year after year that something comes together years later, you know, Dhruv, as you said. But, you know, you also made a point, Dhruv, of, you know, it's multiple days. And I've almost always found that when I make a cool connection during this week, um, I'm going to bump into that person 2 or 3 more times. You know, somebody who I didn't know at all, and now suddenly they're my new best friend because I've seen them 3 times during the week. And so you have these opportunities to have those conversations throughout the week. So don't put all the pressure on that first moment to you know, first moment to make the pitch. So I think that's some good guidance.
I have one more survival tip, because you mentioned dinner, not to get anyone off, was I know you mentioned not to eat, you can get free food. I agree with that. However, my one caveat is make sure you eat dinner in a proper meal. Because I've always made the mistake of, like, after a while, the fried food, the minis, the sliders catch up to you after 4 straight days. So make sure you are actually eating proper meals, right?
Yeah.
Because it catches up to you, all that fried food after a while, and the endless drinking. So pace yourself, but like what I've always found is, like, get a proper dinner and then you're gonna go. Don't skip that.
Good insight. Sofia.
I also wanted to add on to what Tari was saying about reading the room, and what Dhruv was saying about having fun. I think, and I don't know whether this is maybe more acute for startup founders, who are going to these events, and it's all it feels very high stakes for us often, or we raising money, everything is kind of life or death, and so we putting kind of a lot of ourselves into everything, and into meeting people, into this whole conference, into every single interaction. And I think that's hard to maintain, and you burn out, and it's just hard to have, like, 12-hour days with 50 meetings. It's just, you really burn out at the end of the day. And so for me, and this is at JPM, but in general, it's really about figuring out a sustainable level of engagement with people, and not putting 100% of, and guns blazing into every single interaction, but being a little bit more balanced and authentic also. And it feels better, it comes across better, and ultimately it works better, because you're just being yourself. Yes, you have exciting startup and exciting everything, but you don't have to be like 100% on every single second, because you also can't be. And then at night, when you go to these parties, just enjoy and meet people, and it's more important to find people who you click with than to be super focused on potentially finding the right investor at that party, which won't happen anyway.
Yeah.
Key on that. I mean, there's a lot of burnout when you go to these meetings, because you have 10 or 20 meetings a day or whatever. So what we did many times is, if 2 or 3 people are going to a meeting, we take every other meeting and with one person instead of 2 people attending every meeting, so that you basically get a break between meetings. You can focus and then come back refreshed and have a solid presentation or discussion. So I think dividing it up among the team helps with the burnout a lot. At least that's our experience.
Yeah, I agree. We're going with all 3 of us, and we've been going to a bunch of things together, or at least 2 of us, and it's a total game changer. Especially I think for startup founders, like, find a team of people to do this with you, because it's very hard to kind of do all this completely by yourself.
Yeah, totally agree. So, we've been trying to answer a couple of questions. By the way, Thomas, there's a couple people who I think are very interested in following up with you, and so
I have my LinkedIn
one
here,
question in a second. Maybe before we go into a couple final things, everyone is going to be either part of this or maybe Dhruv will get you there. But how can the audience help you, or what are you looking for where we can be helpful? And Dhruv, start with you. Just how can we help you?
Oh wow, that's thank you for the offer. So where we are as a company is, I think I mentioned, so we're a fintech startup that is creating a platform to launch these publicly traded ETFs that are thematic, actively managed in different sectors. So health tech was our first ETF that we launched. So we actually bootstrapped the whole company, believe it or not, and to launch the first ETF, learned sort of as my second time as a founder, the right way of doing this. So we're now raising our first outside capital. So we're actually currently fundraising. So it's actually why I'm tentative on being at JP Morgan or not, because I'm currently in the middle of trying to close the first close of my round for the company. So we're talking to VCs, angel investors, institutions that have ventures arm that can feed both sides of the company as well as the ETF investment. So if there's anyone out there that is either interested in wanting to learn more just in general about what we're doing in the health tech ETF side, I have I think my contact information in here. Reach out, or if you might know of anyone who might be interested in terms of investing into the company on the institutional side, also feel free to reach out as well. That's sort of my life right now, is just investor calls back to back.
Awesome. Awesome. Tomas, we'll take it with you. And I know David Aguilar out there is really interested in connecting, but how can people get in touch with you? What are you looking for in terms of connections?
Yeah, for the people listening and expressed interest, it's important we have some eligibility criteria. We're only now funding small molecules in certain disease categories, the big disease categories or therapeutic areas. You should be in the range of $3 to $20 million for your trial, roughly. And you should be essentially CRO ready or protocol ready, because that's what's being insured. It's not only the molecule that's being insured, it's also the protocol and design of the trial, essentially. So later on in a couple of years, we're probably already 1 year, I hope, we'll expand to biologics, etc. But right now it's small molecules, and I'll be happy to discuss disease areas. The easiest way to reach me is Tomas J. Philipson, Thomas without an H, at gmail.com, or you can look me up at Tomas J. Philipson on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Tari.
Okay, so remind me what the question is again.
So what are you looking for, and how can someone be helpful to you?
Sure.
So tell us what your ideal candidate is that you have not yet had a conversation with.
Awesome. So ideal candidate is a company that's in stealth, that is working in diabetes and obesity. Those are our top priorities, shortly followed by chronic cardiovascular disease like atherosclerosis and heart failure. And that this company will have at least gotten an in vivo proof of concept in relevant animal models to show that it's fairly safe and it works. And I hope it's not super complicated to make, right? And that is really sort of my main criteria technically, right? But like I said, be informative as much as you can. There's a big gap between what people think is enabling versus what is actually informative. Honestly, like the number of people that refuse to tell me the actual molecular target, I was like, I can't do anything with that information. It's not enabling, and targets can't be protected, right, by patents, because they're naturally occurring. I don't want to see sequence. I don't want to see structure. I just want to know what's the biology, what's the mechanism, because how else can I champion? How else can I prioritize within my company if I don't even know how this thing actually works, right? So, again, the more that I can help make the case for you, the better. So sometimes when I see unnecessary caginess, it just drives me insane. I'm like, you're not ready to talk to me, is kind of what I say. And like I said before, like, be cool, be fun, be real, right? This is all about relationships. Getting to the signature of a deal is a long journey. And if we at least, can do more than barely tolerate each other, it makes it way easier. We can have the frank, difficult conversations when we're true colleagues. But yeah, I mean, if I get the sinking feeling in my stomach within the first 10 minutes, it's not a good sign. I've been doing this a long time. And again, like, just understand, like, this is very much about the human connection, right? To Dhruv's point, right? It's like, and to Sofia, you have that random collision, you meet somebody who you really enjoy talking to, and you're like, next time you happen to see them on the street or at another reception, it's a very good chance you'll actually go up to that person and be like, hey, nice to see you again, right? And then you just talk about something. But this is also where, when I talk to other BD people, it's like, for the most part, we're pretty well-rounded people, and that's where the coolness factor comes in. And we can talk ad nauseum about this, but yes, right? Be relevant, and be a really good person to be around, and chances are quite high that we might be able to do something.
Awesome. Thank you. And Sofia, saved you for last, because you are fundraising. What's your ideal investor look like?
Yes, thanks, Dave. Well, we're just starting out. We're raising $1 million to create that first clinical proof point that we can increase the sensitivity of immune checkpoint inhibitors by using bright light therapy, because we believe that the clock controls immune rhythms. And if you not only give the drug at the wrong time, also, if your rhythm is too disrupted, so you never make a T cell peak, the drug has nothing to bind to. And so we want to create that first clinical data set in cancer patients, which is unheard of. And we can only do because we don't have a molecule that we first have to establish safety for, but something as safe as a medical device that we can just shine light on people to really create that inflection point for a larger priced round. So if you're an early stage, high science investor, please reach out to me at Sofia@circadian-os.com.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. And we've got just a couple minutes here. And so we've talked around a few things, including having balance and finding some time. And so would love love to hear from everyone really quickly, super turbo round, whether it's during JP Morgan week or otherwise, what's your, favorite little hidden thing to do in San Francisco? Cool cafe, restaurant, place to go and just hide or meditate. Sophia, we'll stick with you since you just talked, and you maybe spent less time in San Francisco, but what do you like to do there?
I know. Well, obviously it's so beautiful. The West Coast and San Francisco is just magical. Not in January, unfortunately, but still. And I actually we didn't talk about hotels and accommodation, which is such a nightmare. And I could only find something on the water, which is a blessing and a curse, because it's a curse. It's a little bit of a trek, but on the other hand, I'm excited to just wake up to the ocean. So yeah, I'm looking forward to walks along the promenade there, whatever it's called.
Yeah, through Fisherman's Wharf and
Exactly. Yes.
yeah, exactly. Tomas.
Sorry, I didn't get the question. I was looking at my
Oh,
LinkedIn. People email
favorite
me.
hidden San Francisco thing. What do you like to do? What do you want nobody to know about except for the people on this one, because they don't want to spoil the beauty? But
Well, I usually don't do a lot because I'm either super tired after the meeting, I just crash essentially. But if I stay the weekend, I definitely like, I'm a big sailor. I've actually rented sailboats there sometimes.
nice. Tari.
So my favorite restaurant that I like to go to, which is a little bit off the beaten path, is in Chinatown. And by the way, that's a really nice place if you just want to go have a quiet dinner, because everybody's too busy in Union Square and downtown by Market Street. So it hits some of the really awesome places in Chinatown. And my favorite one is RNG Lounge. They make a salt and pepper Dungeness crab that is out of this world. Bring one or two people that you absolutely love getting messy with and getting real with, and go have fun. And the other thing is, I'm a longtime yoga practitioner, and one of my favorite yoga studios is in the Mission District, called Laughing Lotus. And if I have time, and I did build myself buffer time, I'm really gonna try to take at least one class.
Love that. Awesome. Dhruv.
2 words: Tony's Pizza. So like at late night at the end, if you're still hungry, coming out of an event and you need a late night slice of pizza, Tony's Pizza.
Awesome. For me, well, the two things I'll say, there's a restaurant that 25-year-old restaurant that I actually helped to bring into existence once upon a time, called Foreign Cinema in the Mission. That incredible food, but also cool foreign films at night and stuff. We've done some events there over the years because it's a little bit off the beaten path. If you have a chance, but there's a few groups. Eisner Amper accounting firm did a bike ride across the Golden Gate Bridge last year, and a couple times over the past couple of years they've done hikes. Look for a couple of these if you come in a day early. If you're there on Sunday, there's almost always one of these outdoor events that you can do, that I think are, even if you know San Francisco well. I did the bike ride last year, and I think I realized I had never actually biked across the Golden Gate Bridge, even living in San Francisco for years once upon a time. So look for those things. Please do reach out to everyone, connect here, plug into Big Four Bio newsletters. I want to thank Biotech Gate for making this event possible. Looking forward to seeing all of you, including you, Dhruv, in San Francisco. If I don't, I'll see you in San Diego soon anyway. But Tari, Sofia, Tomas, Dhruv, thank you so much for being here this morning, and appreciate your time. And for those of you out there in the audience, hopefully we got you a little bit more excited, a little bit more informed. And please, if you bump into me in San Francisco, or please do say hi and say that you saw us online. So thank you all.